Remember a couple seasons ago where the Atlanta Hawks won like 60 games, even if they don't have a top 10 player on their team? Based on their first 11 games of this season, where they're 9-2, seems like they might do it again. They're surprising me. I picked them to be towards the bottom of the Eastern Conference playoffs because I didn't like how erratic Dennis Schroder is with how much of a controlled offense they've had over the years. And I also thought they were going to be much easier to defend because you went from having two big men who can shoot from everywhere in Horford and Millsap to a guy in Dwight who is always around the basket. However, Mike Budenholzer has figured it out and then some. Schroder has surprised me. And also, this team has a really complete roster. So let's dive into it. Now, I'm going to be spending like the majority of this video talking about their offense, so I'll say about their defense here. They're second in the NBA in defensive rating. And their philosophy for a while has always been to swarm whoever is driving inside. And it has worked out for them. They also have given up, I think, the most three-pointers in the NBA last season or whatever, and it's pretty much the worst formula you can have when going against LeBron James. But against the majority of teams in the NBA, it makes you one of the best defensive teams. Of course, Paul Millsap is one of the best defensive power forwards in the league. And Dwight Howard is still really damn good as a rim protector, even if he can't move around the floor, as well as Al Horford, but Dwight is still pretty decent in that area as well. Also, Dwight has cleaned up their rebounding really well because the one fear that you had with Millsap and Horford was you were going to give up a lot of offensive rebounds. And Dwight is grabbing, 12, 13 boards a game? And speaking of Dwight, he and Dennis Schroder have been the two significant changes this season, and I guess we can start with Howard. I was looking at just a few of his highlights, and while Atlanta isn't throwing the ball to him in the post that often, they've done it a couple of times. They've done a really good job of implementing him into the offense, and what I mean is with their spacing as well as just their play calling. There's a play that they have where they get it to Millsap on the high post, and they run like Bazemore off of some screens, and Bazemore then gets a screen from Millsap to go inside, and then just because there's so much movement, it forces the big man, who is originally on Dwight Howard, who is around the opposite corner of Millsap. It forces them to bring help on Bazemore, and then in that moment, Howard can just cut inside for an easy dunk. There was another time where, funny enough, once again, Bazemore got a screen from Millsap going towards the basket, but the way that the spacing was set up, it was the only person that you could potentially help off of Dwight with is Kyle Korver's guy. And of course, you're not going to get off of Korver, so it resulted in an easy dunk for Dwight. So it seems like with Atlanta, if you allow Bazemore or Schroder to get into the paint and pass the initial defense, based on where the Hawks are positioning themselves, you're really going to be at a risk if you decide to help off of Dwight, because Kyle Korver is, of course, a knockdown shooter. Besides that, there's been a couple of moments where Dwight has just spun off of his defender and Schroder has caught him at the very right moment for an alley-oop. I mean, that's just classic Dwight Howard. He's grabbing his offensive rebounds as he's grabbing like 5 a game at the moment. And statistically, he's putting up 15 points and 12 rebounds. And he's only doing it in 28 minutes a game, so that's really damn good for Dwight and for Budenholzer of managing pretty much everyone's minutes on this team. So it seems like Atlanta's doing a really damn good job of not necessarily calling Dwight's number too much, but they use their complex offense, which is a lot of off-ball screens and guys running around and handoffs that immediately turn into pick and rolls. They do stuff like that to get the defense leaning for a moment, and then it allows Dwight Howard to be Dwight Howard. We should also speak on Dennis Schroder, who's putting up 16 points, 6 assists, while also shooting 45% from the field and 43% from 3. My goodness, that's fantastic. Immediately with Schroder, you can't go under the screen on him. He will confidently rise up, and he is definitely hitting him as he's shooting over 40% from outside. But I was watching the Cavaliers game with him, and it was just pick and rolls, man. It was not anything too complex. It was just get a screen from either Dwight Howard or Paul Millsap, who are both really good screeners, by the way. And then just go to work, get inside, and he might have a thin frame, but he is not afraid to attack the basket at all. His finishing ability has been nice. He is only attempting about 4 free throws a game, so I would like to see that go up a little bit more, but it is nice that he's very willing to attack the paint. It's just maybe he'll stop on a dime or shoot like a 10-footer or something, rather than just putting an elbow into you and drawing contact, but it's working out for him so far. And another thing that should be said is they have 2 really good passers on this team. There's Schroder, of course, at the point guard spot, who is finding guys within the pick and roll. I did mention the Dwight Howard alley-oops, but Paul Millsap as well. I mean, Millsap's one of the best passing big men in the league. He's putting up 4 assists a game at the moment. They have used Millsap in the high post this season. I did mention the play earlier, how they got Dwight an open dunk. So Budenholzer is definitely using his passers to his advantage. Also, when I was watching the Miami Heat game, just a few things I noticed, one of which, the Schroder, Millsap, Dwight Howard horn set, very difficult to defend because Schroder, of course, because of that three-point shot, if you want to go under the screen, which you kind of have to do because someone has to pay attention to Dwight so he doesn't just dunk on your head at the rim, someone has to go under sometimes, and Schroder can take advantage of that for a 3. But of course, because Millsap is so good at mid-range and just creating something with his ball handling and his passing as a power forward, it's a really tough play to defend. Millsap's three-point shot is a little bit down this season, and his overall efficiency is down as well, but I do think he'll be able to bounce back from that. So the big 3 is doing really well. Schroeder's hitting his threes, he's attacking off the pick and roll. They've figured out how to get Dwight into the offense, and then Millsap is just good at everything. But the other guys have been doing really well as well. I mean, Kyle Korver, he dipped a bit last season in terms of his three-point shot, and it seemed like he might be progressing to a different point in his career where maybe he shouldn't be a starter anymore. Korver's back, man. He's shooting over 40% from 3. He's the sharp shooter that you never want to leave open. And again, I mentioned it, they're really using him as a weapon in that offense because there are certain plays where if Dwight Howard is going to dunk on you, the only guy you can really bring help with is Kyle Korver's guy, which you don't want to do, of course. Kent Bazemore, his overall efficiency has not been that good at 41%, but the threes have been good at 37%. I do like how they've been using him in the pick and roll as kind of a second ball handler. I don't think he perfectly fits that role, but they have been making it work. He is up to 3 assists per game right now, so I think that's a bit of a product of it. He also does provide you the outside shooting that you need to really run your offense the way you want to, because, you know, if you want to bring help off of Bazemore, he's a good three-point shooter, and he is an athlete, of course, as well. But it should also be mentioned how deep this team is. They have 3 guys off the bench who are really doing well right now. There's Thabo Sefolosha, who's always been a very good defensive player. He's putting up 8 points and 4 rebounds at the minute, about 24 minutes per game. And he's not shooting too well from 3, but Thabo's always been a smart offensive player. If there's a cut to be made, he'll make it. He picks his spots really well, and he can fit in within a team system, so he's doing good. Mike Muscala, who's putting up about 10 points and 5 rebounds in about 21 minutes a game. He's a shooter at the center position, center, power forward, if you will. They used him to create a lot of spacing against Hassan Whiteside, which was a big reason why they won that Heat game. But also, Tim Hardaway Jr., man, he seems like a real steal when they traded for him away from the Knicks. 13 points per game on 49% shooting, my goodness. The three-pointers aren't that great, but still, Tim Hardaway's been awesome. I mean, it seemed like he might not be a guy who was going to last in the NBA. But he has turned it around and then some, and I was watching some of his highlights. He's just attacking, like he's kind of like their version of Manu Ginobili, if you will. The threes aren't as good, but his ability to attack the basket is really damn good. There were some times where he ended up with the ball in a fast break, and he was able to just go and dunk over somebody, I don't remember who it was. Another time he scored in a pick and roll, attacking the basket, beating his guy off the dribble. If those three-pointers come around for him, he might be the 6th man of the year, because Hardaway has been great. So you have 5 efficient starters who all know how to play together really well, and then you have 3 guys off the bench who also know what they're doing. Atlanta's good, man. So there are not many things to dislike about this team at the moment. Again, do they have like a top 10 player? No, so they might just be on a crash course to losing to Cleveland, but it's not like you just dismiss everything they're doing. If these guys go on a playoff run, if they're one of the better teams in the East, like, hey, shout out to them, that's good. So yeah, I think the Hawks are doing really damn well. They surprised me. I thought they were in for a bit of a down season. We'll see if they can keep it up.